Hello and welcome back to the channel again. This is Sam, still somehow trying to spin to win on Swift. Well, today I'm gonna do something a bit different.
What is it?
Well, it's not a club ladder race, it's not a Swift Racing League, it's not FRR, it's, drumroll, just a standard Swift race. I know, not that exciting. But I honestly can't remember the last time I did one of these. So I'm actually really looking forward to it. Today I'm doing stage 4 of this month's ZRacing series, I think, called Makuri May. I'm in the 570 to 725 Swift Racing Score group, just as I seem to have a Swift Racing Score of 725. I have to admit, I have not paid attention at all to this number, so I really have no idea how tough the competition is going to be today.
No more excuses.
Well, come on guys, I have to give you at least one. So, for the last couple of weeks, I've done very little intensity training. Rather, I've just been riding my bike a lot, because I've felt a bit off, like I'm 90% of normal or something like that. Perhaps I just have a cold, but whatever it is, it just lingered on, and I haven't really wanted to push it in fear that it would develop into something more, severe, like a proper flu or something like that. So the diesel engine, I think is there, I think it's good, but whether the turbo, if you will fire today or splutter out disastrously, well, I just don't know. So today's race consists of 2 laps of the 3 village loop in Makuri Islands. In total, I think we'll do just over 23 kilometers with around 190 meters of climbing, which is a bit over that kind of a distance. But looking at the course profile, there are no real steep climbs as such. Rather, it's more of a longer drag on each lap. So my guess is, and again, I haven't done one of these races for some time now, I think this is going to come down to a reduced bunch sprint. Hopefully the turbo will be firing and not spluttering.
You wish.
The power-ups for today are draft van and feather. So ideally, I'd like to have a van going into the finish so you can draft for the sprint finish. But we'll see whether I need to use a feather earlier just to stay with the front. Again, I have no idea. I'll ride today on the SL Tarmac 8 with the NVES 7.8 wheels. I think the more aero, the better. So I think that's hopefully a pretty good combination. All right, let's see how we get on today. I think it's a pretty good turnout. Last I checked, it was over 50 people signed up. So it should be a competitive race for sure. Let's get it on.
Let's race.
You can actually see me talking here at the start. And I had actually planned on trying to do some commentary during the race. However, I quickly realized that this race would be full gas pretty much the whole way. So I wisely quickly abandoned that idea. My tactic today was pretty simple. Since I thought it would come down to a bunch sprint, I wanted to save as much energy for that as possible and not eat any wind if I could avoid it. However, I did want to stay towards the front, especially on the climb on each lap, as if a group would form and go away from the peloton, it would likely be there, and I wanted to be ready for that. So, we have a usual Swift start with people going nuts in the first minute or so, and usually after that things calm down a bit, but that didn't really happen in this race. So let's just jump forward a bit to the start of the first climb. So the pace settled down at least a little bit, and going into the climb my average was around 270 watts, or around 3.5 watts per kilo for me, but I suspected that the average would be higher after the climb. And sure enough, As soon as we started climbing, the pace picked up. The first part of the climb is very draftable, so I just tried to stay in the middle of the pack here, but I was still pushing well over 300 watts, and since I was getting a lot of draft, the boys in the front must have pushed some serious watts here. As we turned right onto the bridge, I start pushing a bit more to stay in touch with the front, and I'm at 5 to 6 watts per kilo here until we hit the flattest section in the middle of the climb. But there is no rest for the wicked, as the pace still stayed high, but at least I was able to draft quite a bit here. The gradient then picks up again, and I'm working hard to stay towards the front here, as I know the hardest part of the climb is the last kilometer. It's the steepest and people are the most tired here. The peloton is really starting to stretch out here, and I am also starting to feel the effort. As I mentioned, I have not really done many of these kinds of efforts in the last couple weeks, but so far so good. I still feel in control, and I can now see the end of the climb, and I know that I should make it with the front to the top here. But I still have to push over 6 watts per kilo at the end, as the front guys are pushing really hard here. We get to the top, and I am in touch with the front, so mission accomplished. But average watts is now around 320, so it was a good hard effort up that climb, that is for sure. A short skip forward here, and the pace had dropped somewhat on the descent after the climb. And the peloton is now fast closing in on the small front group that had formed after the climb. However, at this point, I think it's Mr. Forcade that steps on the gas and a few other riders follow. I want to be towards the front here, as the group can gain some time even though we are descending, so I push a bit to make sure I stay in touch with the front guys. Not sure if I should have done this, as most likely this group will be brought back, but at the time you just don't know, and if there is a serious break, I want to be in it. So for a while here, we have a group of 7 or 8 riders, and we have a small gap to the rest of the peloton. I guess I should have helped pulling here, since I did make the effort to get into this group, but I still thought we would be caught, so I just surfed the wheels here. Okay, another short skip forwards here to the start of the climb on the second lap. As I expected, we had been caught by the peloton, but we had kept the pace high, so hopefully the guys in the peloton had to burn a bit of energy to bring us back before this climb. I am preparing myself for an all-out effort here, if lap number 1 was anything to go by. But while the pace is high, it is not crazy for the first flattish part of the climb. And again, I'm trying to draft as much as I can on this part. Just like on the first lap, I start to increase the power as we turn right onto the bridge, and while the pace is high here, it's not as high as the first lap. Understandable, I guess, since people are getting fatigued. But then the pace picks up right before the flattish section, and again, I'm pretty well positioned towards the front here. The front group is now also starting to stretch out, and then we hit the steeper gradients and the pace picks up. A couple of guys really pick up the pace here, sprinting away, and the chase is on, but they're quickly closed down. And then we get to the last kilometers, and a couple of riders, Mr. Derken and Mr. Colella, really step on the gas and immediately gets a gap, with Mr. Forcade trying to bridge across. I think I could have gone with them here, but I decided to stay on the wheels as draft as much as I could, as I still thought they would be caught on the descent. We all push pretty hard up the last bit of the climb, and when we get to the top, the 2 guys in front have almost a 10-second gap. Chapeau for pushing that hard on this climb. At this point, I am certainly feeling the effort, and I'm just surfing wheels here and wondering whether I should have gone with the front too, since a 10-second gap is not insignificant. But now, I'm just trying to rest as much as I can on this descent and just hope that we will be able to bring them back. Short skip forward here to just over 3 kilometers to go. And yes, we had brought them back. People kept attacking out of the chasing group, so that ensured the speed stayed quite high and allowed us to close the gap. A bit easier than I expected, actually. So at this point, I am starting to prepare for the finish. I still have my draft van, which I had saved the whole race, and I am trying to calculate when I should use it. Since it is a downhill finish and we will be going very quickly, I have to use it earlier than normal, so Sam is trying to do some mental math at this point. I'm surprised you don't see the smoke coming out of my ears here. At the same time, I'm also looking out for attacks, as people are likely to try to go long. And sure enough, Mr. Lin puts in a big dig at 3 kilometers to go and quickly opens up a gap. Nice super tuck on the bridge here, I must admit. I decide that somebody else is gonna have to bridge that gap, so I stay in the bunch. But it seems like everybody else had the same idea, since nobody really goes to the front. We actually have to wait almost a kilometer here until Mr. Beckers puts in a big dig at just over 2 kilometers to go. Mr. Ivarsson immediately sprints to bridge the gap, and I decide to follow his wheel here. I even manage a short super tuck here as well, before the rest of the group catches us up again, and the chase is on, and with people pushing pretty hard, and with just over 1 kilometer, we bring back the front guys and we're all together again. I try to rest a little, at the same time looking for their next attack, which I know is coming. And with 1 kilometer to go, Mr. Lin goes again with a huge sprint. The chase is immediately on, and I hit my draft van with around 800 meters to go, and I just hope and pray it will last until the end. From here on, I want to stay towards the front, but still draft as much as I can, before a final sprint effort at the end. There is a bit of a lull before I start my sprint with 250 meters to go, right as my draft van decides to run out. Typical. Then it's full gas to the finish, and I managed to finish in 3rd place, just pipping Mr. Lin on the line. It was certainly far from my best sprint, and it's too bad that the draft van ran out a few seconds too early. Otherwise, who knows? But a podium spot is certainly not bad. Okay, a quick look at the final results. So, in the end, Mr. Stiger took the win after an impressive sprint. Mr. Sobel, who also had a great sprint, finished in 2nd place, with me rounding out the podium. Mr. Lin, that I mentioned earlier, must not be on Swift Power, as I know he finished 4th in the race. And a shout out to Mr. Colella here, who managed 4.84 watts per kilo for 20 minutes during the race. Very impressive. Overall, I'm pretty happy with the result, especially considering some of the factors I mentioned earlier, or excuses, call them what you want. One byproduct of the race, however, was that my Swift Racing score moved up to I think 730. So that means I can't race in the 570 to 725 category anymore. I guess I need to mix it with the really big boys next time. Okay, a few post-race thoughts before we wrap this race vlog up. Alright, post-race thoughts. I have to say I really enjoyed that race. It was a lot of fun racing with 50 plus people compared to the club ladder races I've done recently, which by the way, I absolutely love. But it was fun to do something different. And to finish 3rd out of 63 or 64 people in a competitive race, yeah, really happy with that. Especially considering legs were really fatigued going into today. And I've had almost nil VO2 type max training for the last couple weeks as I'm fighting this lingering cold, whatever you want to call it. So I've just not been up to doing a lot of intensity. But since I have a rest day tomorrow, I says, bugger that, let's give it a crack today. And yeah, I held up pretty well, I think. Sprint at the end was definitely nothing to write home about. I can do a lot better than that, but I was pretty fatigued. I didn't time my power up perfectly, but pretty close. And again, coming 3rd with a half-baked sprint in a competitive field, yeah, we'll take it. The race itself was fun. It was pretty much full gas the whole way. I think I had, 310 watts or something like that for, however many minutes it took, 30, 35 minutes, which is pretty good for me. And the climbs were tough. The first one in particular, people pushed pretty hard there. The second climb I found a little bit easier. Could have gone a little harder there, I think, but it was necessary to stay towards the front because I thought it would always gonna come back into a more of a reduced bunch sprint at the end, which is what happened. So tactically, I think I got it about right. If I was feeling 100%, I think I could have gone with the guys who went for a break after the second climb. And if we would have been 3 or 4 pushing hard, you never know what could have happened. But anyway, that's a race for another day. All right, rest day tomorrow. And then I have a club ladder race on Wednesday, which I'm really looking forward to, against our Swedish rivals at Swedish Swift Racers. So that's going to be a good humdinger, I think. So hopefully you can tune in for that as well. Anyway, this is Sam, still trying to spin to win on Swift, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a good one. Bye-bye.